All right, welcome to the Unity Mentor Call. And before we get going, should we have a cup of tea?
Oh, we
Got a
have
little
tea.
cup of tea?
We're so excited.
What do you got today? You have a favorite tea? What's your tea?
I have chamomile vanilla, and it's out of England. I discovered it in South Africa.
Will you say chamomile?
Chamomile, chamomile, whatever.
Okay.
I like to say chamomile,
But
and that's what I've got.
Sandy will break the rules on certain words, which I admire.
Whatever.
Okay, so she's got chamomile. I have some type of Earl Grey. Did you take a sip?
No, I don't need a sip right now.
All right, today we're going to be talking about breaking rules and like understanding what rule bases are and how you break those rules to get forward. And also today we're going to talk about the idea of making sure that your brand, your message is proper for the world. You know, the idea of the ever-changing world and how messaging, branding, and positioning has changed dramatically. And we're going to be joined by Simon Mainwarring, who is one of the most handsome men in the world.
Very handsome.
Very handsome. Incredibly smart.
Very smart.
Yeah. By the way, his eyes are up here, so make sure you look at his eyes. He is one of my favorite presenters, and his book, We First. Just the name We First is so important today. And I think he wrote the book almost 8 years ago or something like that. It's a long time, but the title itself is so important. He's going to join us. And like I said, we're going to be talking about breaking the rules. Every week we have a different topic that we'll be floating upon. Sandy Grigsby is joining me. Sandy, your pitch is what? How did people know who Sandy Grigsby is?
Well, I help you identify what your personal brand is going to look like and capture images that make you look authentic and amazing so you can market yourself properly. So if you want anything related to branding, you talk to me.
Yeah, and difference between personal branding and branding, what's the difference there?
The difference between personal branding and branding is when you have a personal brand, it's actually a personal brand. It's what people discover about you. So when they're looking on the internet, when they're talking to their friends, when they're reading your book, whatever information they're finding about you on their own, that's your personal brand. So personal branding is the process, the strategy, the tools, the methods that you use to create a narrative about yourself so that people, when they find that information, it's what you want them to know. So personal branding is your job, and personal brand is what people find out about you. So it's important to have a really good personal brand. So create your own narrative and do it right. And Simon today is going to help us figure out exactly how to tell an incredible story, not only about our brand, but to have purpose behind it. So what makes our brand powerful?
All right, let's start that right away. Simon Mainwarring is joining us, who's in Los Angeles. He's originally from Australia, and I think he came here like 25 years ago?
Well, yeah, 20 plus years ago.
Yes, so you're an old man.
I am. I'm ancient. I'm shockingly, I'm actually dead. This is an amazing resuscitation here today.
Wait, I came here 40 years ago. So what does that make me?
No, different. You were born here 40 years ago.
I wasn't born here.
Yeah, okay, yes, Switzerland, that's right. All right, so Simon is joining us. Simon's book is We First, which he published 8 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2011 that it came out, yeah.
8 years ago. And I think even the title today is so important for people to realize it's not about the I, it's about the we and the we community. How do you establish what the we is?
Well, I think, your distinction is important. If you think about the way most of us go about life, we think about ourselves first, and that's not wrong. There's a thing called healthy self-interest. It only gets problematic if you're talking about really being selfish, where you want things for yourself at the expense of anybody else. When we're talking about we first, it's really about thinking, how do you position your personal brand? How do you position your company brand in a way where you're serving the interests of everybody as the main priority? That's where the first comes from. And that's really powerful because it ensures that people pay attention to what you're saying. They, want to engage with your brand. They see your products as something as a, positive influence in their life. So shifting from a me first to a we first mentality is really powerful and impactful.
Globally, is that something that we can see happen, or is that more, very progressive countries like the United States and parts of Europe and Australia, or is this a global phenomenon?
I think both are existing at one time. I think a lot of us in our own countries are sort of thinking about ourselves and thinking about our own city or town or state or country. But at the same time, because of things like climate crisis and so on, we're suddenly recognizing, hey, we're one big human family and we're all facing challenges together. So I think both exist in people's minds. We're part of one big human family, but we still understandably think about ourselves on a day-to-day basis.
Simon, when we look at social platforms like Facebook,
Yep.
Facebook is, of course, a multi-billion-dollar corporation that resides in Northern California. Its focus is the idea, oh, it's a community, but it is very, very corporate driven. It's a corporate driven entity. How does a corporation think about a we when its focus is its own I?
Well, I think, what you're pointing to is the tension at the heart of any corporation which is you've got to make money to stay in business. You can't have a mission if there's no margin, you know what I mean? So, any business or organization needs to profit and grow if it's going to survive. That said, the way to do that is to be of service, genuinely, authentically of service to as many people as possible. And that's where the tension comes in. If you speak to Facebook directly, I think you've seen it play out in very interesting ways. In the early days of Facebook and having written a book about social media, there's a lot of promise in terms of how it's connecting people and we can share our lives, and everyone's sharing the sonograms of their babies before they're born and oversharing so much stuff that we really shouldn't know about. And now we've kind of realized to some degree that, the internet never forgets. And so we've tempered some of the things that we share. At the same time, there's been a lot of privacy issues on Facebook where people say, you know what? I don't want you knowing too much about me if you're going to go and sell it to advertisers. And so that's why you've seen, for example, Mark Zuckerberg defending the brand when it's been under attack for many, many reasons, critics and otherwise. And that's why if you look at their positioning, which is all around connecting things. And what they mean by that is they're simply in the business of connecting you to people you love, connecting you to products you want to buy, connecting you to experiences you haven't had yet, connecting you perhaps better to yourself as you get to sort of share who you are with other people. And so they're talking about something fundamentally human, but it's at the core of their business model as well. So I think inherent in any business are these tensions.
Well, I wanted to start very top line. Obviously, Facebook would be at the top, and then you come down to us as individuals. I know we talked about we first, us being a forward-thinking human being around the idea of this community of the world. But as you start off as an entrepreneur, I like that you said margin needs to be out there. Margin needs to come first, right? In some ways?
Yeah, of course.
How do we think as a young entrepreneur moving forward and not just an I?
Yeah. I think every company, and I'm an entrepreneur as well, I've had a company for 8 or 9 years, and it's such a roller coaster ride. If anyone's feeling they're alone or they're having ups or downs or is it worth it, it's a bad day, this is going to be a big mistake, just know that every other entrepreneur out there is grinning through their teeth going, oh my God, I hope we make it as well. And it just is this sort of white knuckle tightrope walk constantly. So take heart, this wonderful misery, you do have company, all of us, every day. So I would also say that the way to best position your company now is to really talk about how you're of service to something bigger than yourself. And let me explain why. You could go out there and sell a product and you could say, here's my new widget and it costs X dollars and it does X, Y, and Z. And really what you're doing is selling at people. And more these days, people don't want to be sold to. Like, think about it. Do you want more ads in your Facebook feed or in your Twitter stream or being geo-targeted and people kind of finding out information about you and, do all those scam calls that come through on your phone? No, you don't. But if you actually, as an entrepreneur, take a moment, take a beat and ask yourself, what is the purpose of the company? Why did I start the company in the first place? Why do I get out of bed in the morning? What is that larger marketplace need that I wanted to solve for that is meaningful and relevant to others? And then talk about that. You'll be talking about the we, and that in turn will build your business, which yes, is self-directed, is me, but again, so you can grow your business and have a greater impact. So it's all about
sure that in your own personal, your branding, on your branding, the we is incorporated in that.
It's incorporated into how you define your company and how you define your brand. And I can just point to a few of the really important parts. One is any company of any size, if you're sitting at home at your kitchen table on your own with just the germ of an idea, or whether you've got 400 employees and $100 million revenue, it doesn't matter. You've got to define your purpose, which is why you exist. You've got to define your positioning, which is what makes you unique in the marketplace. Why are people going to choose you over competitors? And then your story, which is what you're going to tell other people about your brand. So your purpose, your positioning, and your story. And there's certain ways to do that, certain questions you ask, and that's where the we comes in.
The whole idea of what is your enemy is something Elon Musk talks about all the time. How do you define what an enemy is in business?
Well, I think, sometimes if you struggle to think, well, what is my purpose? I mean, I know I make a widget, or I make this product, or I make this shampoo, or whatever it might be. You may say to yourself, well, I don't really know anything above and beyond that. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what the higher order purpose of that is. But if you actually flip the question and say, well, actually, what is my enemy? What's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning? What's the thing that annoys me so much that I talk about it too much at dinner parties with friends? I lie on my bed at night in my pillow and bore my significant other to tears talking about the same old topic. What the hell is that thing that annoys you enough that you got motivated and passionate enough to solve for it? And there's always something. So for me, I sat there after being an advertising guy for a long time, and I thought, wow, when that global economic meltdown happened in 2008, there was a lot of people who were hurt by that. And there seemed to be a big me first mentality out there that was really not serving business or anyone. And so I really thought about, well, how could we give business a new role, and how could storytelling help achieve that? And that's where we first came as the opposite to my enemy, me first. If you think about what's the enemy of Tesla, it's unsustainable transportation. What's the enemy of Uber? And sometimes you might say it's Uber's own leadership, but at other times you might even say that it's a taxi service. What's the enemy of Airbnb? It's that really boring, homogenous hotel experience where you're not really staying anywhere. You're actually you might as well be at home. You're just in a different version of the same hotel. So everyone has an enemy that they can push against to then define what they're for. And that really helps you define your we.
It's going to be hard to figure out what your enemy is. No, seriously. And what he just said is what keeps you up at night, but defining it and crystallizing it. Like SpaceX, what's SpaceX's enemy?
I think SpaceX, which is really in the service of many things on the strength of its satellite and other things, but the larger story it tells is in and around, populating Mars and so on. I think at the core of everything Tesla and Elon Musk and SpaceX has always been about is this idea of keep making life sustainable for humanity. Now, that may take the form of battery technology. That may take the form of cars and trucks and now pickups. It may take the form of satellites and a rocket program that would allow us to inhabit Mars. But there are those who say that our planet is in trouble, and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are two of them, and they're exploring how we can solve for that on another planet. So I think it's really this idea of sustainable living, of the future of humanity that he's in service of.
I know you heard Sandy say what she does right at the very beginning. She's able to project what she does very, very quickly. She's very concise. Knowing what her enemy is, would that help her out in moving forward in that we first society? Absolutely.
When you sit there and you say, well, if I know what my enemy is, for example, let's say for Sandy, the enemy is the lack of self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-expression that's a result of really not knowing who you are as a brand on a personal level. So what she's really solving for is the emotional cost of not defining your personal brand, because it's always emotional at the end of the day. It's always emotional. In which case, if you know that, what Sandy's really offering people is, the optimism, the fulfillment, the significance that anyone can have in their life if they show up, if they're in the arena, if they give people a better opportunity to understand who you are, so that they can orientate themselves around you and say, hey, do I want to be a friend? Do I want to go into business with you? Do I want to talk about you to other people? The clearer you are about who you are, the more easy it is for others to get to know you and to work out exactly how they want to interact and connect with you. And that can unlock incredible opportunities for you on a business and personal level.
Dang, Simon, you're so good. Can you just come live with us?
He does not clean up well.
Oh, darn. You're really good. Okay.
I've got 3 cats. I don't know.
Oh, and he has 3 girls too. He's
3
got
girls. Yeah. So,
2
yeah.
incredible daughters.
We'll make room. We have a big enough house.
Right, there you go.
Simon, as you're going through all this, by the way, again, Simon Mainwarring is joining us. We first branding. Simon speaks around the world. Big brands talk to him on a regular basis. Brands go up and down when it comes to a connection, including us, our own personal brands,
Sure.
to our customers and to society. And we see a brand like Pepsi go through a roller coaster ride, or KFC as it's known today, where it used to be Kentucky Fried Chicken. When does our own personal brands, or when does a brand realize it needs to make a pivot so it has a better connection?
I think there are 2 key circumstances. There's many, but there are 2 broad ones. The first one would be when you personally feel, in terms of your personal brand, that you're not showing up or representing yourself in a way that is true to who you are now. We all change at different stages of life, whether we're a young entrepreneur, we're a father, we're a mentor, we're whatever that may be. And one of the great litmus tests of this is, when you look at your own website and you go, oh my God, I hate my website. My God, we haven't changed our website. That website's not me. You apologize for your website every time you meet a prospective client or customer. Oh, you go, yeah, oh, here's our website, but we're working on it or whatever. That tells you there's some sort of disconnect between who you are and how you're showing up in the world. And we're in a constant state of that all the time. It's always like every 18 months, we've got to retool ourselves. And it's because the marketplace is changing. And so the second circumstance, I'd say, when you've got to retool is when, even if you've done a good job of staying true to yourself, the market has changed. So for example, the way that young people are showing up today, Gen Z, that younger demographic are showing up, is very different to 5 and especially 10 years ago. Why? They're very well informed about the challenges with their future, with the climate and other things like that. And if you look at Greta, the young, 16-year-old who spoke at the UN and so on, you see that young people around the world are very self-possessed, very aware, and they're actually leading change themselves. So that's just one example of, if you're a brand and you're selling T-shirts to young people, you might think, wow, young people today are very different from 5 years ago, in which case, not only do I need to be true to who I am and how I represent myself on a personal brand level, but you also need to talk to them differently. You need to market to them differently. I mean, look, when the web and social media came along, it actually absolutely transformed the way we sell things. So it's either you aren't keeping up with your own self in terms of how you represent yourself out there, or the market has changed and you've lost touch with it. And in both cases, what is the number one thing that every single brand at any moment in time needs? It's relevance.
Yeah, relevance. And that's when a brand starts to fall out of favor with society. It has to. Well, how do you figure out relevance then when you start falling out of favor from, let's just go back for a second. We know that there's been all kinds of bank flub ups since 2008, like you mentioned here in the United States, Wells Fargo, all the big banks went through a situation. Actually, Wells Fargo in the last 3 or 5 years, they went through not just a relevance issue, but a legal situation. Mm-hmm. They were being fraudulent. How does a brand that literally is stolen from somebody flip around and change the relevance?
Well, it all turns on whether they really want to change or not. Because in our experience at WeFirst, many companies want to just manage their image. It's kind of like PR or optics. So they want to advertise their way out of it. And in the same way, if you as a young entrepreneur have made a mistake, you could sort of either ignore the issue or blame somebody else. So the number one question is, do you really want to own it and accept it and move on? And if you do want to move on, the fastest way to do it is to assume responsibility for what happened, to get out there and say, hey, we made a mistake. Look at the CEO of Domino's Pizza years ago who said, our pizzas taste terrible. We know that, and we're going to fix it. So you've got to own it. Then secondly, above and beyond that, you've really got to do the important internal work to say, well, what do we really stand for? Everyone puts brands like Patagonia and Virgin and others up on this pedestal, but the only reason they warrant our admiration is because they're very clear about who they are and they act consistent with that. So you've got to work out who you are. So you own it, work out who you are, and then you've got to consistently deliver on that. And there's 2 parts to it. The first is you've got to do the right thing and tell people when you are doing the right thing and show that you're sort of stepping up in a new way. but you've also got to own what you don't do well. You've got to control the narrative around your brand and say, hey, here's what we're doing well. And we're very mindful of what happened in the past. But here's what we still need to work on. Here's what we're doing to try and solve for that. We'd love your ideas to help us solve for that. And that way people go, they see that you're really trying, and they see you're authentic because you're pointing to the good and the bad. And that applies on a personal brand level or on a, on a corporate level.
Beautiful. So I would like to ask a question about messaging.
Sure.
You know how people use their messaging, not just for themselves or their personal brand, but also for their businesses, that I'm a ninja, I'm an architect, I'm an alchemist, and they throw out all these complicated terms of trying to craft something different. And then when they start telling the message of what it is that they're doing, it's so convoluted and complicated that the average person doesn't understand what they're saying. And then they go, well, people in my industry get it. But then they're complaining that they're not getting any work.
Yeah.
What do you say about those kinds of words for messaging?
I think it's an understandable problem, but it is a problem. And I'll tell you why. You touched on it. A lot of these words quickly become buzzwords, which effectively become meaningless. Everyone's a catalyst or a disruptor or all of these things. Just ask yourself, everyone on this webinar, like if you on LinkedIn, you go to LinkedIn and you get all these invitations from people who want to, and you see their description of their bio and they're a disruptor, a catalyst, Imagineer, you kind of go, you instantly kind of bucket them in some sort of cliched version of something you already know. It doesn't really serve you well. You're like, oh my God, what are they going to sell me today?
Charlatans.
Instead, what if somebody says to you very simply what they're about? So with We First, we drive growth through purpose. Growth through purpose. 3 words. They're not fancy words. They're just simple and clear. Growth through purpose. In your case, every single one of us are doing something simple and fundamental. And when you really sit down, I think the reason people struggle to find that is because they walk straight past it because it's right in front of their nose. And the reason that is sometimes it's hard to read the label from inside the jar. You're like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? I can't see it in terms of how other people are going to see you. And what you've got to do is get off yourself and externalize yourself and really think about how you want to be perceived by other people in very simple terms. And the great test for this is you've got to give people language that would allow them to explain who you are in 3 or 4 words to somebody else.
That's the key.
If it does,
that's why most movies are in 3 words. Most
right? Otherwise, they can't talk. They can't be a marketer for you. And the only way as an entrepreneur with all the challenges you have and the limited money and time and family challenges and all these things you have is to inspire other people to say, hey, oh, you should check out this company, or this product's really cool, or whatever it is. So don't think about how you sell to them, because you can spend half an hour doing that and convince 1,000 people, but there's only one of you. Right. But rather think about how you can equip them to sell you to somebody else. And then suddenly everyone you meet becomes an extension of your marketing department.
That's a great question, by the way. So we look at the idea of your message and then needing to evangelize your message. It seems like that's a roadblock right away. That means you have to educate.
And these elements that you've been talking about go together. So if you're really clear about what your purpose is, when you talk to them in the first place, you're going to tell them about something that they're going to be interested in because it's about them. It's not just about you. You're not just talking about yourself and your product. You're going to talk about something that's really, for example, Airbnb, they're about universal belonging. So they're like, oh, what are they all about? They want to make sure that when you go and have a holiday, you don't just have another forgettable experience. You really belong in that place and you feel like you're part of that community and culture, and that changes everything. So when you talk to so your purpose allows you to connect with somebody. And then if you can simplify it down into a few simple words, then they'll be able to go and talk about it to somebody else. And if you get either of those wrong, as an entrepreneur, you're wasting your time because you're going to talk at people about yourself and they're not going to listen or remember. Or if you do talk to them about something they care about, you're not going to give them the language to share it with anybody else. And then every single lead and every moment you invest in your entrepreneurial business will be a waste of time. And you will spin your wheels for 2 years and sit there going, I have this great product. I really care. I'm smart. I've done the work. Why aren't I growing?
You did a project or let's call it an exercise with the group we belong to called Metal. And you went through this phase for us to understand what our it wasn't 3 words, it was a few more, and that is we make curious minds greater. No, we inspire curious minds to be greater.
Inspire the curious to be better.
That's it. Inspire the curious to be better. Pretty close, 4 words.
Yeah.
To get to those 4 words was a process.
Yeah.
And most people think that, oh, I'm going to come up with whatever. What do you call that, by the way? Is that a core mission? Is that a purpose? What is that?
What's your purpose statement? And, you know, there are different people have different methodologies for how you work that out. But at We First, you know, I started laying that out in my book, and then we've road tested this with dozens and dozens of very significant brands. So it's been stress tested and road tested very, very rigorously. And really, the intersection or the answer, if I was to give you a top line of what it looks like, is you look at your brand and you ask yourself several questions, and those questions are focused on 3 things. What are your unique strengths? What are your most inspiring passions? And what is the most meaningful impact you can create? So unique strengths, inspiring passions, and meaningful impact. And just forget all this gobbledygook. Just for a second, if you go, oh yeah, probably your purpose does live at the intersection of what you're good at, you know, what you're passionate about, and the impact you want to have. Just logically, it kind of seems to make sense. But under each one of those buckets, we have a lot of questions that you ask yourself, and that in turn gets you outside the bubble, you know, you're inside the jar and you can't see yourself, gets you outside of it. And when you answer them, you put it down on paper and you start to see key words and themes emerge. And that's really where your purpose emerges. And, you know, as I mentioned to you, Ken, we put all this together in a really, really simple course called at wefirstworks.com. wefirstworks.com. There's a course on how to define your personal purpose and how to define your company purpose. And they're super inexpensive. And we did that because when I started out as an entrepreneur, I can't afford expensive consultants to help me define all of this stuff. So we took all the work that we do with all these big fancy corporations and put it there. So what are your unique strengths? What are your passions, and what is the most meaningful impact that you can have? And when you answer questions about those 3 areas, you'll start to see almost like a map coming into relief, the things you care about. And that becomes your purpose statement. Now that's different to a tagline, but the purpose statement for Metal is really, you know, to inspire the curious to be better. Yeah. And I'll talk about that for a second, just to say why. Inspire, you know, really means to breathe life into something. So what does that mean? That means Ken gets up there all the time and shares incredible information, shares his heart, brings together incredible speakers, you know, curates these events, does webinars, does podcasts. That's how he inspires. And who does he inspire? The curious. What's that singular defining word that defines who he's talking to? Because it could be entrepreneurs, it could be business people. It's not. It's curious people. It's people who are curious about their future and business and getting ahead. And to what? To be better. What? Be better fathers, be better entrepreneurs, be better whatever. So there's a lot of compressed complexity in that solution. So that's why these things are so powerful.
I'd love to do this project with you.
Yes.
Because it really is you almost analyze who you are. Right. And then you look at yourself different.
Yeah.
And the problem is some people may not want to accept what it is.
That's true. But I think when you ask the right questions and then you keep pushing it, like I think a lot of the reason people don't really get to these answers is they go, well, I probably know I should work out the purpose of my business. And they think about it for, you know, a few minutes and they come up with some top line answers and they stop there. It's harder than that. You know, you actually have to push further than that. You have to ask the right questions, and then you have to look at the sort of pattern recognition across all your answers and go, wow, these things are all right. And I know what I said there, and I know what I said there, and I know what I said there, but it's kind of like you've been approaching the same diamond through all these different facets of the diamond. I'm going to ask a question this way, and a question this way, and a question this way. Or you're looking at all the ornaments on the Christmas tree, and you're describing every ornament, and eventually the Christmas tree takes shape. And that's why, you have to invest the time to do it right. But when you do, it unlocks incredible power for your business.
It's going to be difficult for somebody that seems they're in a very mundane business. Let's just say someone on this call is a YouTuber.
Yeah.
That's how they generate their revenue. They're a YouTuber. And they look at the YouTuber space because they live in it and they say, it's so busy. I'm just one of thousands.
Yeah.
To find your value in something that looks like a crowded space, but which really isn't, how do you step back from that?
Well, I think you've got to get over the confusion as to what your value is. Your value is not the revenue you generate through your ads on YouTube. The value is the emotional connection you make with your unique audience. And that in turn is why they watch, and that's where your money comes from. So as soon as you get very clear that the value you offer is the emotional connection that you make with people, think about all the different YouTubers out there. Really bizarre, quirky people. Then you got, kind of with love, idiots who are setting themselves on fire or jumping off cliffs or hurting themselves or eating cactuses or God knows what, and they've got that shock and awe value. Every single one of them is appealing to a certain type of audience, and that audience is looking for a certain type of emotional connection. And, let's talk in real terms. We first, if we're in the helping business become a force for good, what's that? What's our emotional currency? I think it's hope. I like to say the best hope for business is the business of hope. Like, people want to be able to believe in their future. And when you really unlock the engine of business to improve things for everyone, that really is inspiring and gives you hope. I think what you do with Metal and by really inspiring the curious to be better, there's very powerful idea on the idea of possibility. I mean, you're really giving people the opportunity to make their dreams, financial or otherwise, become real, to be possible. And that's the currency you're trading in. And possibility in both senses, like possibility in terms of what you want, but you're also showing them what's possible that they know nothing about. Oh my God, Elon Musk is now going to do whatever. And they're just opening people's minds to new possibility. That's the currency you're trading. So all of that is to come back and say, there's no such thing as a mundane business. You have to work out who you're talking to and what is the emotional currency you're trading with them. And then you've got to really be able to describe and capture that. And there is no two people alike on this planet. There is no one who's been through your journey. There is no one who has the sort of emotional history that you have. There's no one who can show up in the world that you can, in the way that you can. You are absolutely unique. So you need to define that.
Okay, Simon, last question.
Sure.
We know how to define our purpose, and then we figured out our positioning, and we have a general idea of what our story is going to be. What are some actionable tools to tell a powerful story to set you apart from everyone else?
Sure.
Without being boring, redundant, confusing? How can we tell a powerful story? What are some simple tools for that?
The number one competitive advantage that any brand has today in this market that is so competitive, so fractured, there's so much content, there's so much people screaming for attention, is your integrity, the integrity of your intent. And let me explain why. If you go about your business openly, honestly, transparently, authentically, genuinely committed to your customer, and you don't try and become a certain thing, you don't want to present yourself a certain way, you don't do this, that will resonate on a level that will cut through all the BS that's out there. And that's absolutely critical. At the same time, once you commit to that come from, you've got to stop thinking in terms of marketing and advertising and really think about delivering value in a meaningful way. So for example, you may, instead of paying for Facebook ads to drive traffic, you may do a collaboration with somebody that cares about the same thing. And that partner you have has 100,000 followers, and you suddenly condense time because you're reaching a lot of people who care about the same things on the strength of the values you share. Instead of pay to play, driving traffic, having these algorithms milk you for money, like so many entrepreneurs will do when they'll come in the door. So make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. You have the integrity in place. then think about not advertising and marketing like everybody else is doing, but think about what is the most authentic and smartest way for you to show up to bring that to life. And I know that that sounds a little bit, not idealistic, but it sounds like a bit like, of course, we want to do it the right way and so on. But every single person out there is gaming the system every which way they can in terms of social and digital. And they're all being gamed by the social media platforms whose algorithms are really in the business of turning entrepreneurs into products. The entrepreneur is the one that's making them money. So you've really got to think about how do you show up in the world in a way that's going to make people understand what's true to you and how authentically you go about it. And then one of the most powerful ways to do that is to look for partners. If you're a young entrepreneur that's trying to get exposure for your product or service, don't try and collect eyeballs, individual eyeballs. It takes forever. Try and collect communities of eyeballs. So when you see Ken and Jim Quick talking together, both have a large community. They both expose in a 1-hour collaboration themselves to tens of thousands of people. That condenses time. So look at your time and go, how can I work in partnership with people to absolutely accelerate my reach? And that will drive sales and exposure and awareness and reputation, all of those things you need. So integrity, don't think in terms of marketing, think in terms of how you're going to be as meaningful as possible and leverage partnerships as quickly as you can.
Okay, you did it. You got it?
That was incredible.
Got a lot. People want to find you, hunt you down, and get all the incredible educational tools you have. Where do they go, Simon?
WeFirstWorks.com. WeFirstWorks. WeFirstWorks.com. The courses are there. You'll see they're incredibly inexpensive. The reason we did it is so you succeed, because we need good-hearted people doing good work that's going to have a positive impact. And everything there is the same work we're doing with the Virgins and Toms and Timberland of the world. So it really is best practices, and we just want to see you succeed. So WeFirstWorks.com.
Simon, thanks a lot for spending time with Sandy and myself here
Of
in Unity. Thank you, buddy, and I really appreciate it.
No
I'll
worries.
see you soon, okay?
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Simon. There you go. So Simon is just one of the many talents that will be joining us at our Unity event that we'll be doing next year in 2020, which we're very excited about. And the talent pool is incredible. So Sandy, myself, and then Ava, who's on the call too, which by the way, Ask is Ava, Sandy, Ken, Ask Theory. We got together and we said, how do we create an incredible event that's just not about going, but leaving with something? Because you've gone to the Brendan Burchards and the Tony Robbins and all these big events. And the problem is when you leave, what happens?
It's the rah, 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 I'm going to do all this. And then you get home and you're like, oh, I could clean my garage. Oh, I don't feel like doing this right now. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow doesn't happen. Or it happens in tiny chunks.
So how about this idea? You go to an event, and at the event, you launch your idea. You launch it. You actually make it happen. So you have people like Simon there helping your brand out. You have somebody like Shaheen, who you'll meet soon, who's all around how do you actually hack the systems to make sure that you can actually get some real movement. You have the right lawyers there to paper your deal, your corporation, your intellectual property, and then you have the right people to get the message out, all at the same 1-week event. So that's the idea of Unity. Unity is all around the idea of launching what your idea is while you're there. And Simon's just one of the masterminds that's going to join us. Right?
Right.
Okay, so you and I we did this together.
I know. We're so simpatico.
I know that you watched Simon. It seems like you wanted to take notes really bad, huh?
I did. I was like, the typing.
It's kind of incredible.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
I think that between the two of us, your brand is so much more distinctive to somebody like me. I have to go through that workshop. People could look at it and go, oh, I know what Sandy does. Mm-hmm. But it took
I've
years.
been years.
Right.
Years. I can't even tell you. When I first started, I didn't even know what I was going to do, because I was doing photography and I was photographing people and I was photographing plants and animals and food and products and all kinds of stuff. I wasn't clear on what it is that I wanted to do. And once I had made a decision that it was just going to be people and I focused on that, then I had to start working on my message. My website went through probably 5 or 6 different revisions within the first year That means I kept redesigning it, rebuilding it.
Okay, you can do that.
Yeah,
okay.
I had to do that because it wasn't clear and people weren't getting it. And as Simon said, you know, once you figure it out and you understand what that messaging is, you look at your website, you're like, oh, I love it. You know that's the right thing. And I got to that stage. I love my website right now.
I'm always a bit confused on something.
Yes.
You got Sandy in Focus.
Yes.
And then you have Brio 5.
Yes.
Why not pick one of them?
Okay, so here's the clear distinction. Brio 5 is my business. It's a photography business to photograph people as professionals, as experts in their industries, to demonstrate what their personal brand should look like. Sandy in Focus is my personal brand. So it's all of the things that I'm doing aside from my business. So Sandy in Focus focuses on, my podcast, my certified high performance coaching. It'll lead people to my business, which is Brio 5, but it keeps them more involved in me as a person, my speaking events, the presentation 100 that I'm doing, all of the activities and events and things that I'm doing for my personal brand, separate from my business.
What's the overall shell?
What is the overall
No,
shell?
Brio 5 is the overall shell.
Yeah, Brio 5 is the LLC, the company, so all my billing and bookkeeping goes through it. But ultimately, if I ever wanted to sell Brio 5,
that's it.
That's why there's a distinct separation. So I can take Brio 5 now and sell it as a photography studio to another photographer, and I can still keep Sandy in Focus. Well, if they're so infused, then what happens is when I want to sell one, I lose it. Like think of like a Tory Burch.
She lost everything.
She lost everything. She sold her name. It was the brand. And then another company took it, developed a whole nother thing. She wasn't happy with it, and she couldn't start another company using her own name.
Yeah.
So just make a conscious decision on what you're going to do for your business and your personal brand.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is we sit there and talk about, all right, when you post something on Instagram, because that's your personal brand, does it connect with everything else you've been doing? So you shot a bunch of videos recently.
Yes.
And the videos are 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes long. So they're going to be IGTV and LinkedIn.
Yes.
They are perfect for your Instagram because they're your brand.
Yes.
Right? The same colors, the same look and feel. Most of the stuff on your LinkedIn are not LinkedIn, on Instagram are all photos. Mm-hmm. This is a new endeavor for you, doing videos.
Yes.
But they're brand focused, your brand. It took some time.
It did take some time.
Okay.
And again, it's talking about my personal brand. So in my videos, I'm talking about confidence. I'm talking about posing for the camera. I'm talking about things that are meant and innate for me, but they still apply to my business. So they complement each other. So I can use those videos in my business, talking about having great pictures taken, but I can use them for my personal brand. So they're very diverse and they work for both things.
And your TikTok, what is that now?
My TikTok, I think I have like 7 followers. No, I think I'm up to like 14.
Not your brand.
I don't know. It's not my brand.
It's so much fun.
Well,
you got 3 videos up there.
In a way, it is my brand because I'm strategizing how to incorporate it into my brand. So I've been doing a lot of research on TikTok, and this is the buzz. Everybody's talking about TikTok. Right now, TikTok is the fastest way to grow your following. I mean, like that. There is a woman I saw on TikTok. Because I'm stalking people on TikTok right now to really understand it. She's a police officer. I don't even know where she's based out of. No, it's a different one. It's a new one I found. She's only posted 1 TikTok every 3 or 4 months since 2018. And she has over 1 million following already.
What's the deal? Why? Why do people want to watch her?
Because she's just interesting and the things that she does. She's a police officer. So to see the inside scope of a police car and she's like singing and it's just funny, people are watching it. But more importantly, the thing is with TikTok, it's videos of people dancing and acting crazy and doing weird things, a lot of comedy sketches. But I have seen people successfully use it for their businesses. So one girl does do it yourself. She's a DIY.
Oh, got it.
And her TikTok, they're fun. Her TikTok videos are her making home stuff. So right now it's holidays. So she's doing Christmas wreaths and stuff. And she's got the Christmas music and she speeds it up and she shows, like she'll hold up the pieces and she has a little words that say what it is and she lines them up and then she speeds up the video. So it's perfect for her personal brand. And then in her TikTok story part, she can say, go to her Instagram, go to her website. She says what she does, and she has over 1 million following already. And she doesn't even have that many videos up.
All right.
So
TikTok.
you can use it for what you need it for. Just, you got to get really creative.
I don't know. I think if you're an attractive individual, I mean, you have it all going. People want to watch, just to watch you to watch you. Just saying. I got nobody on TikTok watching me.
I've seen many attractive individuals on social media that have 0 following. I think it's all about your personality and what is unique to you.
I have no following. I have no following. So, hey, we are here, of course, for you every single week, and it's great to see people that are inside the chat. If you have a question, comment, or idea, just say it inside there. We're watching the chat all the time. I wanted to make sure we got Simon out of the way. He was fascinating.
Yes.
We first. I wanted to talk about this idea of rule breaking. So I lived in an area called Itaewon in Korea for a little while.
Yes.
We're doing Korean food.
He's kind of like a Korean celebrity.
No.
He was on all of the soap operas.
I was on one.
Yeah.
But in Korea, when I lived there, I realized that when people would protest, they would walk in a straight line moving forward. So people would be together, and everybody would have a bullhorn at the same time saying stuff. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is, and by the way, when they would also stand, they would stand together. There would be no one unique leader.
Mm.
And the reason why is, in Korea and other Asian societies, is to lead means you have to have people behind you. You would have to have followers, and following is not in that society, meaning that means somebody has to be ahead of, and it's breaking the rule. It's breaking the rule to move forward, because everyone should be moving together. But the rule breakers are the ones that said, I'm going to stand alone. If you want to follow me, but I'm going to have my own attitude, my own, let's say, energy. And what happened is people initially hated that individual because they weren't following the societal rules, but they were the change makers. But it took a lot for them to move forward to break the society rules. In business, to make a difference, we have to break whatever those rules are. And that is either, hey, I'm going to email this way, or I'm going to do TikTok this way, or I'm going to do something different on social media. So whatever the rules that have been established, you have to literally break through them to get to another area.
Yes,
make
absolutely,
sense?
totally.
Okay. So when I say rules, I'm not saying, oh, the government says you can't do this, don't park here. Different types of rules, those are laws. When we talk about rules, rules are things that have been established either because society says you got to do it this way, or the community that's been there for a while says, oh, this is how we do it. Make sure you do it that way too. For example, when I go to Starbucks, I get oatmeal. What do I put in my oatmeal?
Matcha.
3 scoops of matcha. So the oatmeal is green. It looks really weird. Everyone at Starbucks goes, I've never seen that. Well, I'm breaking a rule. The rule is, hey, you got to have oatmeal this way. I like it a unique way. No one else does it. And when someone tries it, if they like matcha, they go.
Your son does it.
My son likes everything I like. But it's a rule that I break. You break rules when it comes to photography.
That's true.
You do things that other photographers would say, no way, don't do. Matter of fact, Peter Hurley, who is one of the world's top photographers, even says that you're better than him. Because you break the rules.
He's a smart man.
Because you break the rules.
I do break the rules.
So let's talk about this idea. And I know you don't like me doing this, but you're so good at it. I'm going to read a few different things here on rule breaking, and I want to get your opinion.
Okay.
And the way I know.
I guess he's breaking my rules of not looking at your phone. We're on
okay,
the
ready?
call.
So the first rule to break is avoid negative thinkings at all costs. So if I say, Sandy, we're going to get up at 6:30 every day next week and start working out. You have this internal rule that says, I am so comfortable at 6:30. I just went to the bathroom. I'm getting back in bed. The bed's nice and warm. But you know, if you do get up at 6:30 and break that rule that you've established, you can actually see a change.
Yes.
Right? But it's hard.
It is really hard.
Because the first thing you did was you went to a negative thought about that, didn't you?
Oh, I did. We do that. It's inherent in how we are. We just can't help it. It's in our DNA.
So if I say the same thing to you, I want you to get up an hour earlier than you have been to focus on email or things that just bog you down during the day, and use that as a new place to create new opportunity. You're going to go, oh, an hour earlier. It's dark out. It's cold. I have to do, the kids are already up and they're going to take, I don't know, whatever excuses you're going to make. You're automatically thinking in a negative place.
Yes.
So to break a rule right away is to avoid all forms of negative thinking.
Yes.
Do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, negative thinking, in some ways, it's a safety mechanism for our bodies to protect ourselves.
That's right.
But if we can flip that switch, I like the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So when you start getting that negative thought, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it's like takeoff with the rocket to outer space, and just switch it.
Yes.
And move your body. That's really important too. You have to,
you got to do it.
Physically move something to create that change.
So what you're doing is you're saying, I know you're used to this. Here's disruption.
Disruption.
Okay. So the next thing, we're talking about breaking the rules, and we're not saying breaking the law, but breaking rules. Next one is, I want you to not to procrastinate. So I have this issue with me, is I do this big presentation every Saturday morning. You know this. And I stress out. And then Friday night comes along and I go, what the heck am I going to talk about? And I generally stay up all night to make this happen. And I've created this reason in my head that, oh, it's going to be fresh. And I think what I've done is I've created my own excuses to procrastinate. And I know this. Look at me, I know this. So
he laughs because
I last week we talked about making change and starting over, and I want to start over starting next week, and I want to get up early in the morning with you, and I also want to make sure that I start the process of not procrastinating to do this thing on Saturday by starting during the week. Okay,
you all heard it here live.
No, but I want you to wake up early with me too.
I do wake up early.
Okay, next one to break the rules is let out your feelings, meaning I don't want to do this. And knowing that that's a barrier. So I'm going to tell you where my resistances are. You're going to share with me, but knowing we're still going to move forward and do it. So if I say, hey, Sandy, we're going to get up, we're not going to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm not establishing that.
Well, unless we came back from South Africa after speaking on stage.
Yeah, and we have jet lag, right? No, but what I'm saying is,
and it's like 3 weeks of waking up at 4:30 in the morning.
If you and I establish a time, and we go, let's just say we're going to go to the gym no later than 6:30 every day in the morning.
Yes.
We're both going to go, oh gosh, and we're going to let out our feelings about, oh, this is going to suck, but we're in this together, right? If I'm not up, you're going to kick my butt and push me out of the bed or pour cold water on me. But we're going to let our feelings know that we're not ready for this, but we know we need to do it.
Yes.
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. And I think we should go at 6 o'clock in the morning, because have you been to the gym at 6:30? There's too many people there.
That means we have to wake up at 5:45.
I'm cool with that.
Really?
I can do that.
Okay, just want to make sure we're going to stop.
All right.
Okay, next, you need to look past the rule that you're breaking to define what the winning self is. So Sandy, if I go, all right, I'm going to ask you to take photos differently. So as you take them differently, you need to say to yourself, how does this affect me in a positive way by doing this differently? Not just because you're doing it differently. So if I say, hey, stand upside down on your head and take a photograph, you're going to go, but that doesn't help me in any possible way, right?
Right.
So by breaking the rule of saying we're going to wake up now at 5:45, if Glenn Jimenez is on here, he knows he gets up really early. This is a Glenn.
He's like six-pack abs ripped.
I know he looks great because he's got that commitment. He breaks the rules and he looks great. I don't think he eats any sugar, by the way. So all those great desserts that we got planned for later on, he couldn't have any of them. So there are certain flavors of life.
You got to break the rules on that.
Break the rule on that one. So make sure that when you are going to look at why you're breaking rules, see the end point in mind. What's the value? What's the value of us getting up at 5:45? Do you hear that? 5, you know how dark it is?
I'm cool with that.
All right. starting Monday.
See, he's freaking out about this. I'm like,
I'm just knowing I'm 5:45.
I mean, I went to bed at 2:00 in the morning. What's getting up at 5?
5:45.
Yes.
That means you're not getting your 8 hours. 5:45, we will see the value in that on the other side. So 2 weeks later, we're going to say, wow, look how great we look. This is awesome. Right?
Yes. Our friend did this. He wanted to lose weight and he started doing, I think, 2-day fasts.
You're talking about Simon.
Sanika.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Sanika's
He
straight
doesn't
fire
eat
starter.
for like 2 full days. He's like, oh, I
No, he
work every day.
fasts. I think he eats. I mean, he cuts out
No,
food.
he fasts. He doesn't eat. He just drinks water and maybe some
Wow.
tea. And within a matter of 2 or 3 months, he has lost so much weight. He's in such great shape and he's committed to it. And
I think that's part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the next one. I'm going to point to it, and that is know your community.
Ooh, that's really important.
Okay. So if you're going to break the rules, how much will it affect the community you're part of? Would you be ostracized because you're breaking these rules? Would they say, we want nothing to do with you anymore? We've seen this, by the way, throughout history, when someone in a religious order says, we're going to do something a little different. And all of a sudden, the entire religious group says, get out of here. You can't be part of this. That's where Presbyterian and Lutheranism and all that came from, is because they broke the rules, but they were ostracized.
Yeah.
So make sure when you are going to break the rules that you're not burning a bridge that prevents you from generating a revenue or generating something that allows you to move forward. It doesn't hold you back.
Or if you're going to burn the bridge, then burn it strong. Look at Ellen DeGeneres.
Okay, tell me more.
She burned that bridge. She came out. And people are like, oh, no, you can't do that. We're not going to have you on TV. We're not going to have you on our movies. We're not going to have you anywhere. You better not come out. And she's like,
But,
and she broke the rules and she did it. And now look at her.
right, but when she did do that on Seinfeld, because that was Seinfeld, it did take a long time for her. So breaking those rules, remember, you may have consequences along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Picking yourself up and moving forward may not be instant, but prepare yourself for that. Because if you define your winning self because you're breaking that rule, because you're doing something that's different, know that there's a winning self on the other side, but it may not be right away. It may not be. What kind of rules have you personally broken?
Oh, boy. With my business or my...
Just you, Sandy.
I've broken so many rules. Like I colored my hair dark after my stylist told me to keep it light.
But what rule are you breaking? I don't get that one.
That's a personal branding rule. I don't know. I would have to really think about that.
I got one for you.
Okay, he knows me better than me sometimes.
Say that again.
You know me better than me sometimes, and I'm not picky with food.
Oh God, yes. Okay, that's a whole different scenario. That's a control thing, but that's different. A rule that you break is you broke the rule of what an average photographer would charge.
Yes, that's also true.
And because of that, it established you, even though, because I said average, you were not average, it automatically then puts you at a different level, how people perceive you. And when they get the work that you've done, they go, I get it now.
Yeah.
So you broke the rule of what that standard fee is, because that would have put you at average.
Yes, but that started with breaking the rule in my mind of what I thought I was worth.
Okay, but that took time.
That took time.
How'd you do that?
I paid a lot of money to go to a coach. I got coached.
And the coach told you.
And the coach was like, this is how you do it, and this is why it works. And I went, no, and I was resistant to it. And when I finally followed what the coach was saying and I did it, it made such a huge difference in my life, my business, everything.
So
and my self-worth. That's really important.
Yeah, well, that changed right away too. My attorney, who raises his fees every year, he would think that people say, I can't afford you anymore. He actually gets more business.
Yeah.
Because he puts himself in a different category of attorneys.
Even our eyelash specialist, Miri.
Okay.
Her store, which is Lilac
Did you say our?
Well, our meaning.
I don't go get my eyelashes done.
She's our friend. She's
Okay,
my eyelash
different.
specialist. She's in Hermosa Beach. But she even has raised her prices incrementally because she gets so busy and she's like, okay, I can't take this client load, so I'm going to change my prices.
Oh.
And then the people go, okay, we'll pay that too. And she goes, I'm going to change it again. And
Well,
it
then
just
she
keeps going
hires
up
more
and
people.
up. And she hires more people and says, use these people. And they're like, no, we still want to work with you because she's established herself. She's done such a great job. She's authentic. She's fun to work with. And so her price keeps going up and up and up. And people just keep going up and up and up with her.
Okay, got two more. Read this long one right here. What's it say?
Don't accept limits placed on you by others. Ooh, that's really big. And a lot of us get that from parents, friends, spouses.
Well, because they're fearful of you failing.
Mm-hmm.
So that confine that's been established, work within that and you'll be fine. Let me give you a great example. If you are a Harvard dropout, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, they would say when you dropped out, you're never going to be successful. And of course they are. Not going to college. That's a rule that's been established when you got to go to college to be successful. Yeah. Well, many people break that rule and they find success on the other side. Of course, they worked really hard beyond college to find it. But the rule was you have to go to college to become successful. I know, I would actually say 50% of my successful friends have not got a formal college degree.
Yeah.
They got a life degree and they're damn good at what they do.
Yeah. Actually, thinking about that, I did go to college. I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And all of the tools that I use for my business, I learned independent from university. And yes, I got a degree in visual communications, graphic design. It did incorporate photography, but it wasn't enough that I felt strong as a photographer and I'm going to be a photographer. I phased myself into graphic design. And all of the programs that I learned to become an amazing graphic designer, I learned on my own outside of the university. So when I actually took those courses in university, I ended up teaching the class. So I feel that a lot of stuff, you can break the rules because you can learn it on your own, especially with technology today, with what's offered on the internet.
Yeah, you told me that you learned a lot of this stuff from YouTube and online.
Oh my gosh, so much of it. If you can't figure it out online or YouTube, then it's a mental block, not a technical block.
But realize, because that rule was broken, let's go back to graduating college, okay? You are going to have to work even harder because people have automatically established that as a rule to say that you're going to be successful because you went through the follow through. The last one, what's the last one say?
Respect the rule makers.
And there's a reason why I put that in there. Because it goes back to, if I'm going to go apply for a job, I'm 22 years old, and right on the resume, it says, oh, I graduated from this high school or this college, this university. They automatically assume something because there's a rule that's been established. Now, if I go in at 22 years old and say, I'm applying for a job and there's no university or a diploma there, they're going to go, now I got to take a risk. So there has to be other things there to respect the rule maker, because that person that's hiring is saying, what's your skill level beyond this university? Oh, I went to the Peace Corps, or I developed this type of company and I may have failed, but I did develop it. I filed for a patent. So they show that that rule maker is being respected by giving them other things to establish who you are, to validate who you are. Remember, rule makers, or people that look at rules, are self-defined in their mind. They're in that box. And if you don't respect that box that they're in, you need to, if you don't respect it, you're never going to get them out of the box to think the way you are. Because most successful people, let's talk about Sarah Blankley. Sarah Blankley only had $5,000 in the bank. She created Spanx all because she didn't want to have any lines on her pants.
See through her white pants.
Yeah, a lot of people said, forget it, it's not going to work. You got to use pantyhose. You got to use all the established rules that are out there. She respected that. She said, this is why this is better. She didn't bash or put other things down. She just showed a progression of why things are better moving forward. She respected the rule makers, but she established her own rules. And now she literally is now the new rule maker. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think there's a rule that our calls are 1 hour.
Our calls are 1 hour, and I want to make sure.
At the end of our call.
Simon Mainwarring, who was great from We First. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, or ideas, we're here for you all the time. Our videos do show up on the Unity page, which is asktheory.com/Unity.
No, it's asktheory.com.
Oh, there you go.
You'll find the link there.
And the reason why we're asking you to register is because we want to capture information so we can send you things that are really important to help you out in your journey of being a next level conscious entrepreneur change maker. So we're here for you. And we'll give you more information around Unity when that happens in the next couple of months. Anything else? That's it.
All right. We will see you next week here at 8:30 in the morning Pacific Standard Time.